Hello, everybody. We are going live in 1 second here. I need to change my virtual background and then we will be good to go. My virtual background. Sometimes, there we go. We are good. Well, everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week for the Grants and Government Contracting Podcast. And in this episode, we got some really exciting things to talk about. We're going to be talking about the big, beautiful bill, cuts chaos and contract gold. What are some changes that's happening with the big, beautiful bill that can affect you as a business, but more importantly, as a government contractor? So we're going to be talking about what are some cuts, where is happening. We're talking about what's happened in the last 6 months a little bit and how that will lead towards some of the changes with this new bill or the new act, public law now. And then we're going to talk about potential surges, changes, a new budget increase and budget decrease. We're also going to talk about what it means for the future for small business, specifically for set aside opportunities, for women-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned businesses, and just small businesses in general. So that's what we're going to be talking about, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or what I call OBBA, OBBBA, but now it's public law. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. We will be diving into the impact of what this new act will mean for all of you as businesses and government contractor. I will make my show notes available for everybody. Let me come in here and share my screen, and then we will go ahead and chime in. So where is my sharing my button here? Yep, here it is. I'm going to share my notes here with everybody. So if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to put my show notes in the chat. And if you are here, we're going to be talking about One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBA, Public Law 119-21, and what that means for businesses, specifically government contractor. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you're joining me live here, as you can see, my name is Abraham, one of the hosts for the Grants and Contracting Podcast. My co-host, Lainey, she is not available today, so you guys have me all to yourself, which I'm excited to be here and hang out with all of you. If you're joining us live, please put in the comments area your name, your company, and where you're joining us from. Whether you're, we have organizations joining us from all over the country. So let me know where you're joining us from in the chat. That would be awesome. And if you have questions along the way, put your questions or comments in the chat as well. If you're watching this on replay, thanks for hanging out with us and watching this on replay. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive into the OBBA, or Public Law 119-21. Now, lots of different things are going on. And I'm not going to cover every single change or every single item. Mostly, I'm going to focus on what this means for government contractors. So it's going to be more focused on that side of it. This document is available in the chat. If you want to go and review my show notes a little bit more, that will be available for you. So the first item I want to talk about is there is going to be a $30 billion Inflation Reduction Act climate grant. There's been a lot of green initiatives, and so a lot of grants have been given to, whether it's solar panels or different type of climate-related grants. This is going away. And so this is going to be one of the big changes, especially if you're in construction, or if you're a electrical contractor and you've been relying on some of these grants here, whether it's for residential grants for homeowners in different states. There's state grants, and then there's federal grants that goes to the state, that goes to the local municipalities, that goes into the families and business owners there. So $30 billion is a major shift in terms of resending these grant packages for renewable energy, specifically around solar panels and so forth. There's another rescission in terms of $9.4 billion for public broadcasting and foreign aid. A lot of this here is going to be tied in terms of, some of this foreign aid is tied back to USAID. We've known that this agency have been under major scrutiny for the last 6-7 months. And so with this shift here, right now, USAID is pretty much non-existent. It's been pulled into some other agencies, and so it will continue to exist. Some of it will be continuing to be phased out. But under the current administration, USAID is if you do a lot of work with USAID or international work relying on grants and contract opportunities from USAID, some of this here will be cut. Some major changes for NIH and the National Cancer Institute. There's going to be a 40% cut. So any health related or any research institutions that's relying on grants or funding from NIH or the National Cancer Institute, there's going to be $4.5 billion cuts. And so that's going to be some major shift for some of you who are doing work with NIH. Some other items that's slated to be changed, in terms of the DoD, there is a $156 billion increase. So that's major, right? Because the DoD is already, they already award about $400 billion of the $755 billion that were awarded last year. Most of that was tied back to DoD. 55-60% every year is tied back to DoD. But there's going to be a major increase of $156 billion, and $29 billion will go towards shipbuilding, and $24 billion will go towards the Iron Dome or the Golden Dome, not Iron Dome. Iron Dome, I think, is tied to Israel. The Golden Dome is tied to missile defense for the U.S. So now, many of you small businesses, you don't build missile, right? You don't build ships. But what you can do is you can do contract management, you can do acquisition management, you can do administrative support services to the primes that are winning these contracts. And so, yes, these may be increases to larger companies, but you can be a sub to SAIC, you can be a sub to Northrop Grumman, you can be a sub to Lockheed Martin, you can be a sub to some of these larger, major, defense industrial based contractors out there. And that goes into some of the set aside requirements, which we're going to talk about, where there's going to be increase in subcontracting goals for small businesses as well. So there's going to be a $5 billion industrial base grant. 3.3 billion of that will be supply chain capacity awards. And then hypersonic, again, when it comes to big defense spending, your goal is to be a subcontractor to the big companies there. Now let's talk about transportation, shifting to transportation infrastructure. The FAA will get a multi-IT telecom budget increase of $12.5 billion. So that's going to be, there's going to be some major overhaul for the FAA. So that's opportunities for you to look out for. The U.S. Coast Guard as well will see a $24.6 billion upgrade. And then with this here, there's going to be some set aside opportunities for small businesses as prime and hub zones of companies for some of the shipyards that's being built with the U.S. Coast Guard. And then there's going to be some civil work for water resilience grant. This is a $8.4 billion. And so for some civil work and IDIQ opportunities there. Now, I want to shift into some tax, changes. Some of these tax changes will be really important for small businesses. But let's talk about I want to talk about opportunity zones. And opportunity zones, for many of you who opportunity zones is not the same thing as hub zone. Opportunity zone this year was approved approved in 2017 under the first Trump administration. And if you are aware of Opportunity Zone, just put a comment in the chat that, hey, you're familiar with Opportunity Zone, or if you have invested in Opportunity Zone projects, put in the chat. Let me know who's aware of this here. But in the summary, Opportunity Zones are where you can take the capital gains. Let's assume you invested in Apple stocks, and you invested early. And let's assume you invested $100,000 into Apple stocks, or just any stocks in general, but I'll use Apple as an example. And that $100,000 has grown to $500,000 over the last 15 years. Well, the capital gains from 100,000 to 500,000 is $400,000 in gains. What Opportunity Zones allow you to do is it allows you to take the gains and reinvest that into different projects that are based out of what's been designated as an Opportunity Zone project, whether it's real estate or whether it's new businesses that are being set up in Opportunity Zones, and you don't pay any taxes on the capital gains. So it's kind of like, for some of you who are familiar with 1031 tax exchanges for real estate, where you can take a smaller real estate project and take the gains of that and reinvest that gain into another bigger real estate project, and you don't pay any taxes on that. Well, this allows you to expand from just real estate to other type of project. It could be a business investment. It could be any type of approved. There's only a few areas where they don't consider as approved, like what they call sin businesses, right? Like if someone set up a massage parlor or a liquor store in a designated Opportunity Zone district, that business won't qualify as a Opportunity Zone investment because they consider those sin businesses. But most business or most real estate that's in an Opportunity Zone will qualify to take funds from capital gains to invest in those businesses, and you don't pay any taxes. So what that allows you to do is you don't pay capital gain taxes. Really beneficial for you as a business or you as an investor, that to take your capital gains and reinvest it without having to pay any taxes. So this is a very powerful, and this is going to be extended beyond the initial phase. Now, there's going to be some, as it relates to tax, just a quick disclaimer, I'm not an accountant, not a CPA, and so these are just my own opinion as it relates back to my own understanding, layman's understanding of some of these changes here. I'm not going to cover every single items here, but I will go through and cover some of them. So I love this component of it here, the FAR. There's a few changes to the FAR. The first change to the FAR is between now and the end of October, the federal government is going to review the federal acquisition regulation. Now, for some of you who have read it and some of you who have not read it, if you're a government contractor, you must read it. If you are a nonprofit and you receive some type of grants from the federal government, you must read the FAR because it impacts you on how you receive contracts or grants. But the FAR is over 2,000 pages. And who has time to read it, right? Well, there's different parts of the FAR that will be helpful. But what they're doing is they're saying that as it relates to the FAR, what they're going to do is for the non-statutory rules. Non-statutory rules means that rules that are mandated by Congress, any rules, they're going to first rewrite it in plain English. And then if the rules are not defended after 4 years, then those rules will be sunset. Meaning that if they're not being used after 4 years, then they're going to go away. which extends back to the 10-in-1 rule that was under executive order. The 10-in-1 rule means that for every new regulation that is introduced into the FAR, 10 has to go away, which I love. I mean, this is amazing, right? We are bogged down by new rules adding upon old rules that some of them should have been repealed or should have gone away. And so Congress and legislators keep on passing all these new rules, adding to all of the old stuff, and no one is reviewing to see what is no longer relevant and what is outdated and needs to go away. And so we have to update some of these rules here. And so I love this here. That's going to make acquisition a lot easier for all of you who are business owners. Now, they're going to do what's called the qualified business income deduction. This is actually important for you as businesses. And so they're going to allow a 20% automatic deduction for all businesses that are sole proprietors, whether you're reporting as a sole proprietor, reporting as an LLC, or as an S Corp. Now, this doesn't apply to C corporations. Now, if you are a C Corp, but you take the S Corp selection, then this applies to you. But this is for S Corp, LLC, and sole proprietors who are business owners, but finally a sole proprietor. What this would do, the qualified business income deduction would do is after, let's assume you have a business and you generated $100,000 in revenue, or it could be $1 million, doesn't matter. If you generate $100,000 in revenue, and after all your expenses, you report $10,000 that flows to you personally, to your personal income tax. Well, of that, you can automatically deduct 20%. So you don't have to go through the standard of writing off a whole bunch of stuff. You automatically get 20%, because most of the time your write-off may not be, like your mileage and your office expense and some of these for your personal write-off. It may not amount to 20%. So what this will do is automatically 20%, you get that write-off. That's going to increase jobs by about 1 million jobs. That's the projection. And that's going to allow revenue to be reinvested to have a net impact of $750 billion in terms of new growth. So that's what this would do. So if you are a S Corp, a small business that's a HubZone 8A, women-owned, it will allow you to reinvest or pay lower taxes because you're going to be able to deduct 20%. So let's assume, go back to the example, you generate $100,000 revenue, all of your write-off for the business expense like office space and your employees and paying salaries and all your lease and all that stuff. All of that goes to 90,000 is written off for business standard, expenses and stuff. You have $10,000 that you owe taxes on. That flows to you personally. Well, you automatically deduct 2,000 from that of the 10,000 that's remaining, which is 20%, and you only owe taxes on the $8,000. So that greatly reduces your tax burden as a small business. Very powerful as it relates to that there. They are expanding the WSB, AI, and cyber NAICS code. So what does that mean? If you are a women-owned business, the SBA is reviewing new NAICS code to be included where women-owned businesses can qualify to be as set aside. There's some high growth area like AI and cyber that currently does not fall under WSB status. And so they're going to increase this here where women-owned businesses NAICS code will fall under these areas so that there can be more set aside for WSB businesses. So that's powerful as it relates to that, meaning that they're going to increase the number of NAICS code that will fall for set aside for WSB and EDWSB companies. There's going to be tighter recertification rules for mergers and acquisition. Now, this doesn't apply to most of you, but if at some point you are a small business and a larger entity purchases your company, that means that most of the time the recertification process, there's not a lot of scrutiny during that process, and so a business that's been acquired still continues to win set aside and sole source contracts. Whereas this is saying that a business that's been acquired specifically by a large company, they must recertify that they are a small business. Because sometimes you are acquired by another small business. In that situation, you still qualify, or you may be a women-owned business is acquired by a non-women-owned business, and then you will have to recertify, and the WSB status is lost in that situation. OTAs will gain greater use. For many of you, if you're not familiar with OTA has gained increased usage since 2019 to 2024. This is one of the biggest growth area as it relates to government contracting. OTA stands for Other Transaction Authority. And then if you get a contract, it's called Other Transaction Agreement. It's treated as a commercial purchase. It does not fall under the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, meaning that you can negotiate directly with an agency and get awarded a contract. Now, make sure you hear this part. You can receive a sole source contract, OTA contract, up to $50 million within 90 days. Up to $500 million with beyond 90 days. So, but it's a sole source contract. So some of you're only familiar with sole source contract to 8A company, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and HubZone certified companies. But you can get sole source contract under OTA. Now, in a future class, we can go into all of the specifics around how to get your business set up to go after OTA opportunities. But in a short summary, it's mainly designed for new innovation or emerging technology or R&D type of innovations. So if you're saying I do janitorial services, that's not going to qualify under OTAs. Now, if you develop a solution, a product that if you spray that product on the door handle and it continues to kill bacteria, it's organic and it's safe, it doesn't harm people, and you need further, you've done some preliminary research, but you want to use it to control maybe the spread of certain viruses, like for example, COVID, or maybe bird flu or anything like that. And as a janitorial company, you develop a product like that, yes, that will qualify under OTA. And so you can get a $50 million contract. These are not grants. These are contracts to create prototypes, to create use cases, to go to market with this. So it's different from SBIR, SBIR, or STTR grants. This is directly with an agency outside of NIH and so forth. And OTAs is a big component, should be a big component of your contracting strategy. In a future episode, we will talk more about what are OTAs and how to get that set up for your business. So DOD, their budget is going to increase for fiscal year 2026. We mentioned earlier, by over $150 billion. So it's going to go from $836 billion to $992 billion, which is an 18% budget increase. Now, not all of this here will be government contracts itself, right? Because some of this here goes to employees, goes to equipment, office expense. The DoD has 550,000 facilities worldwide. So all of this here, some of this increase is not necessarily for contracting purposes, but of this year, I would say probably about $400 to $500 billion will be tied back to contracts. And so for you as a business owner, this increase is positive. So if we look at this here, civilian agencies, right? USAID, EPA, Department of Education, NIH, these agencies are getting their budget decrease. DOD is getting their budget increase. So where do you play? Well, guess what? Instead of focus on EPA or NIH or CDC, where their budgets are getting scrutinized and getting cut, you want to work with DOD, the Army, Corps of Engineers, the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, Space Force, or Fleet Command. So all of these different new government agencies tied to the Army or Air Force and so forth, all of the DOD sub-agencies, perfect, right? That's where you want to spend your time and focus on. For the FAA, they're increasing a capital fund of $12.5 billion. This is a new initiative. So that's, FAA will see increased funding. We already talked about this here, the deduction for small businesses, that's going to be really helpful. Tax-free tips. If anyone, or if you are in an industry that receives tips, you can actually, up to $25,000 of tips, it will not be taxed. Now, with this also, there's a part of this here is also a overtime payment. I think up to $12,500 in terms of overtime payment will not be taxed. So how does that impact you and your business? Guess what? If you are a shrewd business owner, and let's assume you pay yourself $50,000 a year, and coming next year, you're going to your revenue have grown. Well, instead of, many of you as business owners, you work more than 40 hours anyways. So instead of paying yourself $60,000 for next year, you keep your income, your regular income at $50,000, and then you recapture the increase for the extra hours that you're working. So, again, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a, accountant. So I'm just thinking ideas, right? How can you take advantage of the overtime work? Because you're already working overtime as a business owners already. You may want to see how you can benefit from the $12,500 of overtime pay that you won't be taxed on. Just an idea, run it by your accountant to see if you qualify. And not every type of labor categories will qualify for the $12,500 overtime pay. So make sure you check with your CPA on that there. The small business goal, this here, there's some major changes for small business goal. As some of you are aware, the small disadvantaged business, mainly, which the 8A program falls under the SDB program. The Biden administration reached 12% goal. They're trying to increase it to 15%, but the Trump administration repealed it or changed that back to the 5% goal. So that means there's going to be less emphasis on the 8A program. So if you are a 8A certified company, you definitely want to build relationship with women-owned businesses, 8A certified, SDVSB certified company, HubZone certified company, or position yourself so that you can get the HubZone certification. If you can't team with somebody else, start looking for teaming partners or add the HubZone certification to your status as a company. So this can be for prime and for subcontracting purposes. So this is important for this big change here. Some of the tax we've talked about already. OTAs, we talked about that. And the FAA, these are some of the funding, specific funding tied back to the FDA, FAA, and different infrastructure funding. Let me see if there's other items in here that we can address. So we already talked quite a bit about DI as it relates to the elimination of DI. This has a few different impact on you as a business owner. The elimination of DI requirements goes back to affirmative action. Whereas if you have 50 employees or more, you're no longer required to have an affirmative action plan. In the past, when you do your SAM registration, one of the questions will say, are you in compliance with OFCCP, affirmative action, or do you have an affirmative action plan in place, right? So that's one of the questions in your SAM registration. And many of you may not even know what that's in regards to. But the rule says if you have 50 employees or more, you must have an affirmative action plan. Well, that's gone now. So you don't need to have an affirmative action plan because of the dismantling of the DI requirements and affirmative action requirements. So less burden for you as a mid-sized company with 50 employees or more. Also, some of this here will go back and impact e-verification. E-verification, it's a requirement that if you have, at the federal level, if you have 50 employees or more, you must have e-verification set up. Well, with this here, that means e-verification is optional now. Now, at the state, counties, and city requirement, e-verification is still important. You must have an e-verification ID number to be able to bid on most state and local projects. Not all of them will require that you have an e-verification identification number, but many of them will still require, because at the state level, the requirement is not 50 employees. The requirement is if you are a business, you must have an e-verification number. So e-verification is still required. I would say, even though you don't have 50 employees more at the federal level, still get your e-verification because it's important in the situation you bid on local opportunities. And if you don't have that, you can't even bid on it, or they will if you don't fill in that blank, they may consider your proposal as non-compliant, and it goes into the debt stack. And for some of you, if you're wondering why you haven't won local projects in the past, it might be because you don't have an e-verification number. So get that done. Some other few items that's not on my notes here is CSO, which is part of the new initiatives here. CSO stands for Commercial Solutions Openings, meaning that for many of you, the layman's term is considered, it's called off-the-shelf solutions. So off-the-shelf means that the product, the software, the product is already existing. And all the government have to do is, oh, I want to buy that. Whereas in the past, the government will, if they need a software for budgeting, they will hire a company. The company will come and implement a new budget, create a new budget software so that the government can use that new budgeting software. That's very expensive to do it that way. Guess what? There's a whole bunch of budgeting software already out there that can be customized to meet the government's requirements. And so CSO is where the government will work directly with a small business or a manufacturer of certain goods or services, and they will work directly with the government and purchase it through a commercial purchase versus going through the acquisition traditional life cycle. That could take 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to purchase. So CSO is the government will say, hey, we are looking for this. And you can say, I have that. And then boom, done. Very simple process. The government will negotiate directly with you. Now, some early examples of CSO is where Google, and this is for big companies, but we're going to start to see this for small business as well, because this is a new initiative. Or it's kind of been around a little bit, but not really used. There were some early pilot initiative of CSO for the last few years, but now under the new administration, under the new regulation, they're going to increase CSO, the use of commercial solutions openings. And so practically what that means is, in the example of Google Workspace, historically, the government have been using Microsoft 365, SharePoint. Most federal agencies are standardized on Microsoft technologies, whether it's Microsoft email systems, Microsoft Word, Excel, all of their tools there. Well, Google negotiate directly with the government, and the government says, if you give us a discount, we will allow our federal agencies to use Google Workspace. Well, I have a preference for using Google Workspace myself. Most of our technology is built around Google Workspace because it's just a little bit more friendly for us to use. I've used SharePoint and Microsoft, 365 in the past. The email system and some of it is a little bit more not as user intuitive. So I've never been a big fan, although I love Microsoft technology, use many of their other tools, but SharePoint in itself just and their email system has just not been my preference. So the government negotiated with Google. Google said, we're going to give you a 73% discount. Wow, 73. I wish I get a 73% discount off of my monthly bill on Google Workspace, but unfortunately, I'm not the federal government. I don't get that 73% discount. So CSO is being used to do that. Adobe, I think, gave like a 60 or 65% discount. And many other software companies are giving the government bulk discount, and the government can say, okay, our federal agencies can buy directly from Google or Adobe or whoever else. That can be true for you and your small business. Let's assume you have a specific solutions to do something that the government can use. Well, now instead of you competing directly with other software companies, you can negotiate directly with government agencies and give them a deeper discount. It doesn't have to be 73% discount like Google. That's just an example that Google that really happened with Google. It could be a 30% discount, 25% discount, 10% discount, 50% discount, whatever you want to negotiate with the government through CSOs. Now you have a direct relationship and it's considered a commercial purchase to where it does not fall under the FAR, and it will not necessarily be burdened by all the acquisition life cycle of 3 months, 6 month buying cycle. So lots of new initiatives, increasing budget with DoD agencies, decreasing budget for civilian agencies. These are some of the initiatives that's happening. So with that, I want to see if anybody have any questions or comments on anything that we can kind of address. And so I will pause my screen sharing here, look at some of my notes here to see if there's any questions for anybody as it relates to what we've covered today. For some of you that joined late, I'm going to put my show notes in here so that you can go and review the show notes. It's going to be in the chat area. And if you are watching this replay, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That would be awesome. So final call for Q&A about any of these items that we've covered today, or any items related to the contracting marketplace, the shifting landscape that we are in. Any questions or comments around that there? Okay, well, with that, I don't see any questions or comments coming in. I want to share some good news for everybody. My wife and I were celebrating 23 years of marriage. And so this week, I'm going to be taking a mini getaway to Augusta, Georgia. Now, many of you are thinking like, hey, Augusta, Georgia, that was not my choice. My wife said, after 23 years of marriage, I want to encourage you. I want to go and do something that you enjoy, meaning that I will enjoy. So she's actually taking me to Augusta. We're getting a houseboat right off of the Savannah River, so I can fish right off of the houseboat in the Savannah River. And I'm going to be playing the pickleball tournament at a indoor court, nine indoor courts, air conditioned. I'm going to be playing singles. I'm going to be playing mixed doubles and men's double. Don't know who my men's double is. Never met them, but through the system, they set me up on a men's double and a lady who's going to be my mixed double partners. So in the future episode, come back and listen to see what, whether I won or lost in my pickleball tournament. If you are in the Metro Atlanta area, or if you're anywhere and you want to play pickleball, I love to play pickleball with you. There's a few things I love to do. One of it is fishing, and the other thing is pickleball. And I get to do both of those this coming weekend. So my wife is amazing, and she is, really trying to encourage me in this way. So I'm really grateful for that. For some of you who are happily married, hopefully your loved one will do not just what they enjoy, but do what you enjoy also. So super stoked about my wife just considering all my my joy, my pleasures in that way. So with that, next week we'll be right back here. We're going to be talking about the topic of vision and mission and taglines. And so we're going to be talking about that there for next week. And why should you attend that there? One is if you don't have, well, the first thing is you as a business owner or as a nonprofit organization, if you don't know your vision statement, guess what? Your audience will not know, your donors will not know, your employees will not know your vision mission statement. So we're going to help you to define what is a vision statement, what is a mission statement, and why that matters for your organization, because that is what coalesce and bring people to you. And so we're going to be talking about that there. And sometimes your vision mission statement needs to align with your tagline. And sometimes your tagline is your vision or your mission statement. And so we'll be addressing that next week and how to use that there to help you to scale your business and your nonprofit organization, making sure that your messaging is on point with that there. And if you have some and you come back, we will critique your vision and mission statement to make sure that that is in alignment with current times, as well as it's in alignment with the current state of your organization as well. So I will see you next week, same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And thanks for hanging out with me here. If you're watching the replay, do me a favor, click on the subscribe button, notification bell. That would be awesome. That's how you can give back to us here. And remember, you are one grant and one contract away from all your goals, away from the next employee that you want, away from the house that you want, away from the new staff that you need to bring in, or away from the next office that you want. One grant, one contract away. Until then, see you in another episode. Have a good one, everybody. And thank you for all of the congratulations in the chat area. Super grateful for all of you hanging out with me today. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.